All Sweet Podcast, here we are. All Sweet Podcast, here we are. Okay, episode 12 with Jacinta Jaye. I am here, I am talking. What am I talking about today? Today I'm going to be talking about where I stand on stand-up comedy, because in the last few months, my feelings have changed drastically, and Perth, which I talked about Perth last week, but I'm going to go a bit more into that. Perth changed my feelings drastically on how I feel about stand-up comedy, what I'm doing, what the plan is, and let's just say the goalposts have shifted a little bit. Now, where can I begin? I'm just going to go into it, and whatever journey this goes on, it goes on. So basically, I started this podcast in October last year, and I've recorded an episode a week or close to an episode a week. And in that time, I've noticed the amount, it's ironic, isn't it? Sometimes you do a thing to support another thing, and then the more time you spend on that thing, the whole initial thing you started kind of falls off. It's sort of, I'll try to think of an example. It's like, have you a full-time job and you're in a band, or you have some sort of hobby, or you're trying to start some sort of other business, and then you say to yourself, oh, okay, you know what, I'm going to go get myself a full-time job so then I could support this other thing that I'm trying to establish. And that's happened to me numerous times where, you know, I've got a job to like support maybe a film project that I've got, or a music project, or a comedy project. And then what happens, you just get sucked into the vortex of that particular job. That becomes the main focus. And then the initial goalpost becomes sort of like the side mission in your life, so to speak. So with this podcast, I started it to help me build an audience online and have clips to post and all these things to help support the journey of stand-up comedy. And so you can build an audience and then have a fan base and people who enjoy the art or whatever it is that you create, and have them want to come to shows and buy tickets and all this. I've said it before, unfortunately, the creative industry, if you might not necessarily be an attention-seeking kind of person, but it is the business of seeking attention. Because if there's no hype around whatever it is that you're creating, and if no one wants to go listen to your music, if no one wants to hear your jokes, if no one wants to see your art or buy your art and keep it in their house, you're not making any money. And the only way that translates is then by promoting whatever product it is that you're creating and essentially ramming it in people's faces, telling people to like you and enjoy it until eventually they do like you and they do enjoy it, and then they do buy tickets. And it sucks. I hate that whole thing. I started realizing that I wasn't enjoying the gigs, and I put it down to that I'm just not enjoying the jokes, and I've told these jokes over and over again. And I had done a whole run of good shows, and now it's like, well, I'm a bit bored of this, or the jokes that you tell, you've sort of grown past them and they don't resonate with you, so you feel like a fraud telling them. That's the kind of position I ended up finding myself in. And then the big tipping point was the other day, or the other week, when I was in Perth. I was backstage and I was performing at the Comedy Lounge, which for a lot of people, that's sort of, if you're a comedian in Australia, there's certain goals that a lot of comedians have, and it might be to perform at a certain venue, or to get to a certain amount of followers, or to do a certain gig. Same with music as well. You know, it might be like, oh, our goal is to play at Cherry Bar, and then to get a Cherry Bar residency, and to then do a local support, and then to release an album, and then do a bigger support, and then go into state. You have these little checkpoints that you think you need to achieve. And I think that's with anything in life, but I'm going to speak specifically to comedy and compare it to music. But you get these checkpoints that you think you need to achieve, and you start measuring yourself against that because there's that element of, well, I guess I'm a stand-up comedian or I guess I'm a musician and this is what I need to be doing. This is the path I need to take. Anyway, so I was backstage at Comedy Lounge. I'm sitting there with everyone else and it's just like every other gig. By the way, the lineup that I was on, everyone was lovely and it was awesome and it was fun. But, just like any other gig, everyone's talking about comedy and I'm like, I don't want to talk about comedy. Let's just have a chat about anything else. Any other conversation, any other topic. But I guess that's what happens when you're in an environment and your only commonality is that one thing. And I suppose to a degree, even in music, when I was hanging around other musicians, our only commonality would be music. So then we'd talk about music. But I feel like there was a lot more to talk about in those circles than in these comedy circles. And I guess in the comedy circles, there are a lot of people who just can't hold a conversation down, which then makes it hard. And then as soon as I find someone is not necessarily an open person or hard to talk to, it makes me close up, it makes me go weird, and then it's like, this is the chick that has a podcast and talks to herself for 45 minutes. She can't hold a conversation with a person for 4 minutes. Not that the Perth gig was like that, but I remember sitting back there and I'm like, okay, I'm at Comedy Lounge. I should be a lot more excited for this than I am. That's what was going through my head. I was getting all these messages of people like, oh, congratulations, that's sick. That's a sick gig. That's going to be so good. And I had this huge feeling of, man, I just want to get this gig done with. Granted, I think a big part of this feeling came from the fact that I had already been offered, like I've posted on Instagram, I'm going to be doing these music gigs soon. Usually throughout Melbourne Comedy Festival, that's when I'll do a stack of spots or support gigs. And I had that organised. I had a whole heap of gigs and stuff organised. But once this music thing came up, I was like, well, this is paying me better money and it's going to be a lot more fun. I get to wear a costume and it's sort of an adrenaline-filled show. Of course, I'm going to take this and I'm going to cancel all the comedy stuff I've got booked. And then it's almost, that was a weird turning point because it's like, when you're in a job and you know that you're about to leave that job to go work at another job, and no matter how much you like that original workplace or that original job you've got, suddenly you just check out and just don't care. And that's what happened. I was sitting backstage at Comedy Lounge. I'm aware this is a very self-indulgent episode, but the reason why I'm talking about this is I feel like maybe other people have had this thought pattern before, not necessarily about stand-up, but about something else that you're doing where you have that epiphany where you're just like, what am I actually doing here? I should at least be happy to be here and doing what I'm doing. And I found myself sitting there. I was like, I was dreading going on stage because I hadn't gigged in ages and I didn't have the excitement. And then there was this whole thing of I need to impress the other comedians that are here. I need to impress the venue. I need to impress the audience. I need to get this. I need to get that. And then that just consumed me on stage, which made it not fun at all. And the first gig was okay. It wasn't my best gig by any means. It wasn't bad. It was good. Like they laughed and that's that. Like it was the bare minimum you could hope for. And I hate to say it, I kind of put in the bare minimum I could give to a degree. I don't know. It was odd. And I did that. I was like, okay, cool. That's one done. It was that whole big weight on me where, I have to get them to like me so they book me again. And that's just a shit feeling. It's a feeling that you feel, and this is nothing to do with the venue. The venue's fantastic. This is my own thinking right now, and it translates to a lot of things, whether it's music or comedy or whatever. This whole feeling of, I need to impress this person, I need to do this and do that. It weighs you down. And it was the same even in music gigs. You're there doing a gig and you hear that a person from a particular record label is there. Then you think, all right, guys, we've got to really impress them. And it weighs on you. But then you think, what am I doing? What am I going to do that's so different from any other gig that I do? Like, shouldn't every gig that you do ultimately be an attempt for you to do your best gig? And these were the thoughts that were just ruminating in my head while I was backstage. Why am I putting this immense pressure on myself? Why do I not feel excited? I should be here and feel excited. And then I just started thinking, so I'd finished that first night. Then I had and I went back to my hotel. I didn't even want to hang out with anyone after. Then I had the next night of gigs. Though that night went great because, it's always the way when you haven't gigged in a while, you kind of need that first one to get your words out and just figure out what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, what your jokes actually were, how things tied together. The second night was great. Everything was fine. But honestly, if someone called me up the day of the second gig and was like, hey, you're not gigging tonight, I'll be like, yeah, sweet. I just was so checked out. And then thinking to myself that I'm meant to be here. I'm interstate. I should be at least excited to come do the whole I should at least be excited to be here. The whole reason I'm here is to do this. And that's the thing I'm dreading most. And then talking to other comedians there, telling me how they're back and forth between this country and that country, and they're traveling up and down Ireland and up and down England and up and down Australia doing these gigs. And I was like, oh, so that's obviously the main thing you do. That's your main source of income, just gigging. And like, yeah, I just do all these gigs all the time. And I'm thinking, man, you could not pay me all the money in the world to enjoy that. And the irony is I've done it before. I did it for music. I would go up and down UK, Europe, Australia, wherever, doing these gigs, tired, eating Maccas, sleeping in a van, sleeping on a floor just to do these gigs. And I didn't think anything. I felt the same level of excitement the whole way through until eventually I stopped enjoying it, but that was for other reasons. And the whole way through, I felt the same level of excitement and enthusiasm. And never once did I have a feeling of, man, I really can't be fucked to go on stage tonight. And that's just how I felt about comedy. And then listening about the lifestyle these people live, then to make it sustainable, I was like, man, you must really love it to have to do that and to be happy to do that. And that's how you live your life. And good on you. If that's how you feel, that's amazing. And it's good that you feel like that about this, because I don't know if I do, in all honesty. Anyway, after the gigs, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make the most of my time here. I'm going to go see my friends, because I have a few friends who are comedians from overseas and they were running gigs and venues. So I went to their gigs, and they're running that they would have like a venue that's purely theirs throughout the whole Fringe Festival. And in this venue, they might run 6 gigs a night. So they're there every night, 6 gigs that they run. They might host it. They might do a spot, or they might just be there to organize it. And then they get money from the ticket sales. And this helps them like subsidize their whole trip in Australia. And that's what a lot of comedians actually do in Australia. I'm not sure how it is in other places, but in Australia, a lot of comedians, whether it's during the festivals, regardless of what state you're in, whether it's a festival or even outside of the festival gigs, a lot of comedians just want to make money from comedy. So their way to do that is by running shows and like having venues and running shows and booking venues. And, you know, some of them will like travel overseas or like overseas to Australia, and, you know, flights aren't cheap, accommodation's not cheap. So they'll be like, oh, I need to find myself a venue, and I'll book a venue and people can hire my venue for their own shows, or I'll do a lineup show, I'll do this, and then I can. So they're making money off of running a venue. Babe, you're not that's not doing stand-up comedy at that point. At that point, you're a promoter. At that point, you're working in events, promotions, and operations. And I know, and again, this is so subject person to person, but I have to admire the fact that you really love stand-up comedy that much. You want to do it that much, that your way of subsidizing it and making it sustainable is to run a venue and essentially be a promoter. It's tricky because in my eyes, you're not actually making money as a stand-up comedian. You're making money as a promoter. And if you want to tell yourself you're making money as a stand-up comedian, that's all well and good and that's great, but you're making money as a promoter. Whether it's in a festival or out of a festival, if your source of income from the comedy world comes from you running a venue, you're a promoter or you're a venue organizer or something. You're not receiving that income necessarily from your stand-up comedy. And this isn't a reflection of these comedians or anything, because they are all the ones I'm thinking of are actually extremely talented comedians and are very funny and deserve to be making money purely off their stand-up, but they're not. So this is how they have to subsidize it. And it was me seeing that made me realize, wow, I don't want this as much as you guys. Like, you guys love this so much that you will happily run a venue. And for a while, like at one point last year, me and like a friend of mine even discussed, all right, we'll go to Perth, we're going to run a venue, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I was like, yep, sure, we'll do that, we'll do this. Oh, we'll run a venue in Melbourne, let's suss our venue. And they thought about, why am I running venues? What do I look like? What, is this destroy all lines now? Like, am I Metropolis touring? Why am I running venues all of this? That's not why I did this. But some people love it that much. If they could run a venue and get up and host and do a 15-minute spot hosting, they've won. To them, they're happy and that's what's made them happy. And good on them, but I realized that's not what it is for me. Then on this trip, I met other people talking to me about like gigs that they had done in Edinburgh Fringe and how they were sharing accommodation with this person and that person. And then they had to pack up and go here and share accommodation with this person, that person, go here and go there. And I'm listening to this and I was like, this is exhausting to even listen to. And they're talking about it just fine. I caught up with my friend, as I said, my friend Nikki in Perth. I was listening to her talk about her shows. I was listening to other comedians talk about their shows. And they were so enthusiastic and happy, and they could not care if there's one person there or 100 people there. They're just so happy to be on stage and doing those jokes. So I'm thinking, I do not have this at all. Even when I was doing the gigs at Comedy Lounge, I had really switched into this mindset of, you guys can laugh, you guys cannot laugh, or you can laugh. You can find this funny or you don't find it funny. Whatever, I could not care. Now that's a problem. That's a pretty problematic way to think. When your whole reason is to make these people laugh, and you're like, fuck it, don't laugh. If you don't want to laugh, that's on you. And they were laughing, but it's just, I went on and I just did not care. And this really, it sat with me. I came home and I was like, why am I like this? Am I a sociopath? What is it? And then I just started talking with like a couple family members who'd come to a gig in Geelong recently. And then I started thinking of the acts who were on in Geelong. And they were all so excited to be on stage. I had this thing of like, this is their moment. Like what they were, you would think God knows what they were about to do on stage. They were so excited for that 10 minutes. And then when they came off stage, they were on this high. Comedians talk about this high that they get from everyone laughing and this validation. This thing, I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I don't feel this high. I have felt highs in my past, and this high ain't this. Maybe I have experienced highs that are too high that I just can't be pleased ever again. That's a possibility. That's a pretty depressing possibility, in all honesty. But it is very likely that maybe I just can't get as happy about things as other people do. Very likely. And you know what? Not uncommon. Typically, I do struggle with feeling the same. Actually, no, that's not true. I can either feel an extreme sense of euphoria very easily, or I feel nothing at all ever. And I don't know what it is. And I'm not going to say, oh, it's this, or like, we're just fucked up humans. I'm not. It's just how I am. And, I hate to bring the culture back into it, but I think that is very typical of my culture, and it's what I've been around. We're either pleased very easily and we're over the moon and ecstatic, or we're just perpetually in a state of being unimpressed by everything. If something impresses me, I am truly impressed. Like, there's one show last year, I have seen it 2 times already. I'm going to see it again, a stand-up show, because I was just impressed. I will watch the same TV show over and over, listen to the same song and band over and over and over again, because I know that thing makes me happy and I know that I enjoyed it, and it just gave me such a high when I enjoyed that. I don't get these, like, when people are like, oh, I've got to celebrate the little wins. I don't give a fuck about the little wins. What's the little win doing for me? I'm swearing way too much in this episode. I've got a headache today. This episode's going to be a pain in the ass to cut, because I'm having to slice it up because I'm sipping water constantly, trying to like ease this migraine or whatever it is. I think it's because I'm dehydrated. I'm convinced migraines are a hot girl problem. It's always hot chicks who have migraines. Like, we're just built differently. The ego. But yeah, just going back to sound, I have a lot of comedians talk to me about, and this is something I noticed from like day one, I don't know if people are romanticizing stand-up and they genuinely feel these things, or if they're just saying that they feel these things because they feel they have to. But the whole thing of the high they get from the laugh, the validation they get, yeah, it's nice. I feel happy that I've made people laugh, but my happiness comes from the fact that, oh, I've come up with this idea that I'm talking about and I've relayed it to these people, and whatever I've relayed, they've taken in, absorbed, and understood it. That's where my satisfaction comes from. And maybe it's because I think a lot of people are dumb. Not necessarily audiences, just like society. Society's a bit dumb. I'm a bit dumb sometimes too. It's just how it is. And maybe it's like, oh, it's a sense of, I get a sense of joy when I feel that I can share an idea or something that entertains me with someone and they see it the same way. And that's, for me, where the high comes from. I don't get this high of, oh my God, they laughed at me and laughed at what they had to say. But yeah, this whole thing, like, by people telling me this, it messed with me. It really stuck with me. I was like, what's wrong with me? And then I'm sitting backstage at the gig and I'm just reflecting. And then I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't want to be Dave Chappelle. I don't want to be some stand-up comedian with their little crowd work clips online. I do not care about that. And then I had to do this big introspective reflection of what is it that I do actually care about and what's caused me to have this big shift. Because at one point last year, I was so serious about stand-up comedy that I was like, I'm going to do this podcast. I need to do this podcast. And now it's flipped to the point where I feel stand-up, if anything, gets in the way of the podcast at times. And it dawned on me, I realized what it is. I don't care about, it dawned on me, I just don't care about the attention of being on stage to do comedy. Because that same feeling that other people get when they're on stage doing comedy, I get from doing music. And it's almost like when this music thing got offered to me recently, it freed me. And I was like, oh, I don't need to do stand-up now, because this whole satisfaction that I get, I can just get this from doing a music gig and I'll feel way better. And then I was thinking about it even more and more. If someone put a gun to my head and said, you can never do a stand-up gig again, or you can never do a music gig again, I would be like, right, okay, it's music forever. I'm just doing my music gigs. If I want to make people laugh, I'm a funny person. I could just do it in a chat. I don't need a big stage and lighting, people sitting facing me for that feeling. I'd rather just do the music gig. And then I was like, okay, cool. It's clear now. I actually don't enjoy stand-up comedy. Like, I enjoy it and I do it, but I don't have this urge to do it for the rest of my life. If anything, that sounds like a prison sentence. I'd hear these comedians talk about, honestly, some comedians, they get excited just to go to a ribbon cutting ceremony, if I have to be honest with you. Like, I heard one comedian congratulate another comedian because they were going to start doing the announcements at the train stations. Like, this is what you've resorted to. This is success to you. Then others talk about how they're having to go do mining towns or emceeing a wedding. And I contemplated emceeing a wedding because I was like, oh, it's money, doing something that's sort of like stand-up. It's like, no, I don't want to do something sort of like stand-up. I don't want to find these loopholes to make money because I'm emceeing a wedding, I'm emceeing a staff party, I'm there, I'm announcing a raffle and a meat tray, I'm hosting a venue, I'm running a venue. These are all like these little side quests in stand-up comedy, but you're not actually doing the stand-up. And then I started thinking about that more, and then I realized I just like writing and coming up with ideas and articulating those ideas and getting them out and sharing them with people. And if people enjoy it, that's great. If people don't, that's fine. I can write other stuff and think. And I was like, that's why I enjoy it. That's why I started gigging less. I started doing the podcast, which meant, I'll be honest, I don't really write for the podcast. It's a lot of stream of consciousness, particularly this episode. But sometimes, I plan the bits I want to talk about, and that satisfies that thing in me. And that's the bit that satisfies me, the coming up with the joke or the concept and writing it. Whereas I think for a lot of other people, that whole process, the satisfaction comes from actually being on stage and sharing it. Mine stops at the creation. And then when I just look at everything, it's like, at least with music gigs, you're creating an experience to a degree. It's a bit different. But it's like making music, writing for the podcast, writing jokes, short films I've done, or like any other thing that I think of. It's the process of creating. The process of stand-up, do not care. Literally don't care. And I'll care even less when I'm doing it to a gig of 4 people who don't even really want to be there. It's like, who is this for at this point? You're not liking it. I'm not liking it. How about we just end this here and like just get a drink and have a chat at this point? And do you know what the irony in all of this is? The fact that I started the podcast to support stand-up, but the whole reason I started stand-up was because I wanted to write scripts and write for TV. And this delusional thing in myself thought, oh, I'm going to do stand-up and I'm going to host the project and why would you want to host the project? The most boring show Australia has to offer. And that's a goal for people. And then I was like, they're not going to put me. Like we said, they don't put ethnics. Like whenever they have some sort of like Eastern European person there, they've got them doing the Zorba and smashing plates and making kjoftina or something and making jokes about excessive body hair. And it's like, this was a goal of mine. Are you kidding me? And the whole reason any of these goals and things eventuated is because I wanted to just write scripts for TV and for film. That's all I wanted to do. And it's funny how the initial goal was literally write scripts for film, TV. That was it. That was all I wanted. And then it was like, oh, I'm going to start doing stand-up. And then stand-up became, I'm going to go do the podcast. And then it nearly became, I'm going to run a venue. Isn't it insane how you can lose sight of what you originally want because you fall into the trap of doing all these other things, all these other little things that are so-called stepping stones that you think is the correct way to go about it, and it's not. look, this isn't a very funny episode today, but I'm sharing this in case other people have experienced the same in some way in whatever area of their life. It's like, make sure what you're doing is the thing that you want to be doing, and you just haven't gotten sucked into a little path of thinking this is what you need to do and how you need to do it, because it's not. And I messaged a friend of mine who's a very good comedian. I'm going to have her on soon, and she's very successful. She's been in TV shows, and she's selling out her own show, and she's talented in so many ways. Like she's a comedian. Not only does she do stand-up comedy, but she can sing, she can dance, she can act, she can do everything. And I messaged her because I noticed, she's doing so many stand-up gigs at the moment. And before she wasn't, well, not as many as she's doing now. I said to her, do you see yourself as a stand-up comedian, or what is it? She says, no. And she's like, it's an interesting question. She thought about it as well. She's like, I guess I'm not a stand-up comedian. I guess stand-up comedy is just another thing that I can do. And then I thought about it even more, and I was like, well, when I think of all the people I look up to, they're not just stand-up comedians. Like, people will come to me about these people who are purely stand-up comedians, nothing else, and how they look up to them. And it's like, I look up to my inspirations, who I guarantee everyone will say these people are hacky, but like Ray Romano, Kevin James, David Spade, screw it, Adam Sandler, Rob Schneider, Seinfeld, Larry David, all these people who I like adore almost. They're the people that I almost aspire to be career-wise, not saying that I will, but they're the people that I, that sort of got me going on this whole journey, let's say. None of them are solely stand-up comedians. Like, they're writers, they're actors, they have a much more holistic thing to them. And they dawned on me, what the fuck am I doing? What is this? So let's get to it now. After 34 minutes of me sharing just this epiphany that I had, and it's interesting because when I realized all of this and when it fell into place, everything felt so much more freeing. I'm not even going to refer to myself as a stand-up comedian anymore, to be honest. I'm just someone who just makes shit and hopes that people like it. That's all it is. So what this means is, will I still be doing stand-up comedy? Yes, but less. And a lot of stand-up comedians are like, no, you need to be out there gigging 3 times a night. We're not in New York, babe. Where are these gigs that I'm actually going to get anything from and actually going to develop by doing it 3 times a week? Three nights a day every week. So I'm going to be doing less gigs. The podcast is going to be the bigger focus now because I enjoy the writing for it, and I'd like to make this sustainable for myself. I'm going to be having more guests on the podcast soon. Solo episodes, of course, that's the main thing, but we'll have guests coming on. I've been arranging a few, and I'm very excited to share them with you. I am shifting away from so many comedy gigs because I'm focusing on scripting, because as it stands, look, I am like, I've been given quite a few scripting things, and it's like sort of been given to me on a plate, but I just don't work on anything because, I'm so preoccupied by, I'm a stand-up comedian. It's like, babe, you're not. I will probably at some point do an hour show for a festival. Like, that appeals to me. The process of coming up with a show and writing a show, that all appeals to me. But this need to be on stage just doesn't exist. I would love to have maybe a club in Melbourne that I get up at regularly and I do 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and just like, it's almost like my home club. That would be great. I don't have a desire to go to all these, like my friend Casey, she wants to go to every little pocket in Ireland and do stand-up, and that's great for her. That sounds like a nightmare to me. Like, I want to do New York, I want to do LA and Melbourne and Sydney. Maybe London once, just because I happen to be there. But, yeah, it's all become clear to me, guys. I know today's episode is literally just me talking to you about where I stand with everything, but what it means for the future of the podcast is I'll be putting more energy into the podcast and these other things. Stand-up comedy will still be a thing, but just it's not the focus anymore. And just like that, that's how life becomes all sweet. Things are all sweet. I've realised it. I feel better now. Anyway, guys, have a lovely, lovely week. I am doing a guest episode next week, so that will probably be what I release next if I get a chance to edit it in time. If not, it'll be a solo. Hey, who knows what life can throw at you, okay? Anyway, I'm Jacinta Jaye. It's been all sweet. See you next time.